So we're going to talk about thought today, and I want to do it in the context of those really frustrating things that happen as you're out and about when you're walking down the street every day. So I have multiple clients who have come to me sharing that they get really angry, furious, frustrated about very specific things. So for one client, that was anytime someone honked their horn in a car. Let's say my client's walking down the street and someone honks their horn, they would go into a visceral reaction of fury. For another client, it was anytime she was walking down a busy street and people would walk she would describe people would walk in diagonals. So she's trying to walk straight down a street and the pavement is busy and people are walking left and right, so she's not able to cut through. That would really, really frustrate her. For someone else, it was someone eating really loud on the train, or someone playing their music loud, or someone talking really loud on the phone. So for different people, it will be different things. You might not relate to any of these things. But if you're someone who relates in some way to experiencing such a massive reaction, negative reaction to something like this happening in your day-to-day life, this video is for you. And we're going to talk about thought. So what's happening? So first of all, people often think these things happen, that feeling of anger happens because of the person eating loudly. So if that person eating made me feel angry, right? And that's how we think of it. It's like there's this human being or this action over there, and that causes me to feel really frustrated on the inside, and then it ruins my day, or then it ruins my journey, or I can't focus on anything else. I can't possibly read my book on the train because every time that person crunches, that's causing me to feel angry, right? So there's this belief that the anger is coming from someone else. The frustration, that feeling, that emotional reaction inside of me is coming from someone else and their behavior. And I want to suggest that it's coming from thought, so that we're misplacing where that has come from. So that feeling of anger that rises up inside of you, what if that's not coming from them? What if it's coming from your own mind, your own thinking about eating, or about diagonal walking, or about horn honking? That's a different kind of game then that you're playing. Because what I'm suggesting is there are certain thoughts that you have in a moment, like, how rude is it to eat that loudly? Or how dare they honk their horn? There's no need for that. That the noise pollution is so unnecessary, right? Those are the kinds of thoughts that create this incongruence inside of you. It creates this conflict between you and that action, saying it's not right, it's not okay, how dare they, do they have no self-awareness, whatever it might be. I've got somewhere to go, people need to stop getting in my way. Don't they know that people have to get from A to B, right? So there's all these thoughts that we have going on in our mind. And what I want to suggest is it's those thoughts that create that visceral reaction in your body. Thoughts become feelings every time. So anytime we're having a feeling, there's a thought. There's a thought that it's connected to, or that it's come from. That's the cause of the feeling. Because I'm sure, and you can think about this now as we're talking about it, and you can tell me if I'm right, but I'm sure there are times, no matter how few and far between, where that action doesn't produce the same reaction in you. So someone honks a horn, but you're rushing to the hospital because your wife is giving birth. You don't hear the horn. So, someone eats really loudly, but you're on the train in a really engaging conversation with someone about something you really care about. You're probably not worried about the person who's eating. You're walking down the street and someone's doing the diagonal walking thing, but you're on a day off and you're having a really nice, and it's gorgeous weather, and you're listening to a podcast that you love. And you're just kind of like really relaxed and easy breezy, and you kind of just walk around them and it doesn't bother you. right? There are scenarios where these exact triggers will not have the same impact on you. That tells us something really valuable. It tells us that it's not a cause and effect. It's not coming from the loud eater, because if it was, every time someone ate loud, you would feel it, and you're not, right? There's an exception to the rule, and that tells us there's something else going on. So the invitation here is to notice the thoughts that are creating the feeling. When you have a reaction, when there's this visceral anger and you kind of see red, how dare they honk their horn, or whatever your version of that is, notice the space that exists in that moment. So there's space. I guarantee you there's space. You might not see it. It might not feel like there's space. But between the action, the honking, and the reaction, there is a split second. And that's, Viktor Frankl says, between the stimulus and the response, there is always a space. And it is in that space that freedom lies. So you want to start looking for that space. Is there a way that we can crack that door open just a little bit to create a space between the thing that's happened, the fact on the outside, and the feeling on the inside? Now, this won't happen immediately. And to get you into the feel of like looking for that space and finding that space, start noticing the thoughts that are going on in your mind to create that feeling. So when you have that feeling and you go blaming the loud eater, it's like, okay, well, what are the thoughts that add up? So we've got a loud eater over there. We've got certain thoughts over here. A combination of those creates my feeling. So you want to start to get wise to what those thoughts are. Because for someone who's super hard of hearing, or for someone who is really loud themselves or whatever, they're not going to have the same feeling because they've got different thoughts. Right? For someone who loves leisurely strolls all the time and doesn't really have anywhere to go and isn't in a rush, they might do the diagonal walking thing themselves, or they might not worry so much about the diagonal walking. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? There are certain thoughts that create that feeling, and if those thoughts weren't there, the feeling wouldn't happen. Now, I'm not saying that to say get rid of the thoughts. I'm just saying get curious about what your thoughts are that create that feeling. That will be helpful for you in starting to expand the spaciousness in the moment. I hope that makes sense, and good luck.